Hey, it is Darby, and I wanted to share with you a recent presentation from the 2022 Association for Conflict Resolution Conference, ACR. I presented on conflict coaching, how using neuroscience and self-care um, is accessible and affordable ways to prevent and reduce conflict. This material will also be available on my blog, on my website, and there'll be shorter posts on social media. If you are interested, you can just look for hashtag calm conflict. I hope you find this useful. So for the first part, we'll do some grounding exercises to regulate our nervous system. And the first one is a body scan. So starting at the top of your head, slowly just kind of make your way down through your body and notice if you feel any tension, any tightness, any discomfort, any pain. Also notice what is relaxed, what does feel good. Take a moment to do that now. Another activity that you can do to bring yourself or your clients into the present moment is called clearing. Clearing is something that's used in coaching, ICF coaching a lot, before you start a session, just so that whatever you're walking into the space with, you can get it off your mind and be very present and focused in the present moment. Um, I would also do this when I taught in a physical classroom as restorative circles with my students. We would start each class with a 5 to 15-minute circle where they could just talk about whatever they needed to talk about. And afterwards, they were able to focus and concentrate. So clearing can include talking um, with somebody else that's trusted and safe. It could be writing or typing in a journal. You do not have to keep this. You can delete it or dispose of it afterwards. Um, it could be drawing. And like I mentioned, the restorative circles is a great way, especially if you're working with a group of people, like coaching clients, group coaching clients, or students in a classroom. Heart hug, this goes by many different names, um, is when you place one hand over your heart space and you hold it there for about a minute. You can hold it there as long as you want to. Um, it doesn't take very much. And this actually releases the same chemicals in your brain as like getting a hug from another person does. So it's a great way to regulate the nervous system and it feels really good. So give it a try. And 10 deep breaths. I'm just doing this for ease. There's so many different breathing exercises that you can do to help regulate your nervous system and calm down. If you're just getting started into breath work, you can place one hand over your heart and one on your belly. And the goal is to breathe deep so that you feel your belly rise and fall as you're breathing. So take a moment to have 10 deep breaths. So a little bit about me and how I came to this point, this presentation. I started out teaching math. That's the coordinate grid, Y and X. And then if you skip down to the bottom, I went through a family court experience. It was not the greatest. And that really opened my eyes to family court and how traumatizing it can be for a lot of people. After that, I went to grad school. So the pen and the pencil up there is my trauma-informed pedagogy. I got 2 master's degrees in education, really focusing on how trauma affects learning and behavior. At the same time, I was learning about adverse childhood experiences and how things like divorce can impact lifelong mental and physical health issues. So then down to the shark fin, I enrolled in a PhD program at Nova Southeastern. It is conflict resolution, and furthered my overlap between education. I really focused on peace education, but also interpersonal conflict and the idea of how family court is adding to conflict and trauma. And I started my business, Trauma Informed Solutions, to try to really address these needs. So I have a lot of different things I do and a lot of different ideas I connect. But what I'm really getting to is calm conflict, which is the program I am going to be doing research on for my dissertation. And a lot of what this particular presentation covers is things that will be included in my calm conflict program. So it will be launching in January of 2023. And my current research focus is women who have been through family court and comparing my program to regular court practices and seeing the differences, seeing how effective they are, and which one can actually prevent and reduce trauma and conflict. So checking in, take a moment to see how you were feeling. How did those exercises we just did feel to you? Ready to deep dive? Let's get started. So what coaching is and how it empowers the client. I want to be very clear. In family court context, oftentimes when you hear the word coaching, it's in a negative connotation. So you might say, oh, mom is coaching the child to act this way, or dad is coaching the child, basically telling the child how to act and behave and what to say. That is not what I am talking about when I'm talking about coaching. I want to make that 100% clear. So if you have heard the term coaching negatively in terms of family court, put that at the back of your mind and understand I'm talking about coaching in terms of International Coaching Federation coaching, which is very backed by research, peer-reviewed articles, 2 totally separate things. So the ICF definition of coaching is basically coaches partner with clients, they're thinking partners, and a thought-provoking and creative process that helps them to maximize their potential. And I really want to emphasize that coaches facilitate clients maximizing their potential. This is so important because it is all about empowerment and agency. The coach is not telling the client what to do. All the coach does is hold space, ask powerful questions, and the client is the expert of their own life. The client is making all of the all the decisions. The client knows what will work and what won't work for their life. So really focus on the empowerment part of this and the maximizing their own potential, because that aligns with like the hierarchy of needs, which we will cover soon. In an ICF coaching session, there's an agenda to follow. So clearing happens with the updates. If there's anything a client needs to fill you in on, how the progress is going. The client chooses the session topics, what they want to talk about that day. They pick objectives, so like specific, measurable, kind of like a SMART goal. By the end of the session, I hope to get this out of the session. The client or the coach can take notes. The coach asks powerful questions, which are basically open-ended questions that usually start with what. There are action items that the client comes up with. What are the next steps? What are you going to do first? What list of things did you come up with during the session that you want to take action on? There's an accountability plan. Usually the client holds themselves accountable, but the coach can check in if the client wants them to. And then if there's any additional resources like tools or exercises, journaling prompts, I like to use a lot of somatic exercises, kind of like we covered in the beginning of this session. Those can be shared as well. So as I was mentioning before, it's really important to focus on the self-empowerment, self-actualization, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. This is the standard Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom of the pyramid is survival mode. It's people needing to feel safe, people needing to have their basic needs met. So that's feelings of safety, having a regulated nervous system, food, clothing, shelter, the basics. And it's not just physical safety, it's also psychological safety, which a lot of us tend to overlook. And then in the middle is kind of where the healing and the resilience fall into place. It happens in community and relationships and belonging. And that's why I think coaching especially is so important. Same with therapy, same with having like a good nurturing teacher if you're in school. Being in community really facilitates healing, because that's where you can co-regulate with people that are feeling safe and secure. So we can share our ability to be calm with one another. And once you're at that place, then you can start to work on your personal goals and be self-actualized and thrive. As a family court example, coercive of control, which is also known as domestic violence or interpersonal violence, coercive control is like the opposite of that. So it starts with entrapment and perceived threat and really changing somebody's identity from you don't belong to yourself, you belong to me, ultimately disempowering them. So my program, Calm Conflict, has 3 basic phases where it's like survive mode. This is, like you're in survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze. I'm going to cover kind of the neuroscience behind that very soon. And then there's deep dive mode where you can learn and manage your expectations. And then there's thrive mode. So, powerful questions for conflict. If you're a practitioner, a professional, a teacher, whatever, you can use these with your clients and or even with yourself. Like if you're going through any kind of conflict, these are a few powerful questions that you can reflect on. If you want to pause the video and grab a screenshot, you can journal on them. What would a successful resolution look like? What do you want to happen? What is concerning about the situation? What is your role in the situation? What do you need to know? What options do you have? What do you want to feel when this is resolved? So let's check in again. What are ways that you could use powerful questions in your practice or in your family or in your classroom? And how can you empower your clients or students or whoever you're working with, even your kids, if you have children, with more agency and choice? I think a lot of times when we are in conflict, especially family court, for example, um, there are a lot of things that we have no choice on. We're just, given an order and we have to follow it. So coaching and using powerful questions like I've been talking about can help people to see where they do have choices and what they are in control of. And that's very empowering. So up next is foundations of neuroscience and how the nervous system impacts conflict. So your brain during conflict and trauma and stress and all of those other things, right? Um, I'm basically going to go over the triune brain, but I want to make it clear I'm not a neuroscientist. um, the brain does work all together. These are not like three disconnected separate parts, like it all works together. But the brainstem, that's sometimes called the lizard brain, and I like to use this example because I'm in South Florida and there are lizards everywhere. um, is really just focused on survival. And if you've ever had an interaction with a lizard, they tend to run. Like, you know, they are very quick to respond. They don't want to be caught or eaten, or I would not eat a lizard, but they don't want to be caught or eaten or anything. Like their brain is focused on surviving. And that's the sensory motor input. Like it's just like instant run away, they're very reactive. So if you're in survival mode, more than likely you're just focused on getting through the day. You might be very reactive. You might have like physical responses, especially to noise or whatever your triggers might be. So think about this in terms of the people that you know and in terms of the people that you work with. If people are very on edge, if they're overreactive to things, this might be why they might be in survival mode. So the limbic brain, kind of in the middle there, is in charge of attachment and emotions. And two parts of this area of the brain that I want to talk about are the amygdala and the hippocampus. So the amygdala is the very hyper responsive and reactive fight, flight, or freeze. And it sends out the hormones and the chemicals that flood your body with either adrenaline or cause you to shut down. I will talk about the different symptoms and characteristics of fight, flight, and freeze very soon. And the hippocampus is overreactive, fear conditioning. So what's important to keep in mind is some people might have a fear response to things that don't seem real to you, but it's very real to them. So, and this is kind of like what fear conditioning is, where you can't shut it off. You can't tell safe from unsafe. So you're constantly being triggered, and the people that are experiencing this might not have the capability to express this, like using words. So again, think of the people that you work with, your clients, your students. You might be seeing this in them. And then the cortical brain, really think about the prefrontal cortex, like right behind your forehead. This is where thinking, learning, language, the ability to like stop yourself, impulse control, happens. So during conflict and trauma, it could be numb. It actually shrinks in size and volume. It won't function as well. There won't be the ability to control your reactions to things. So something I like to bring up a lot is Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. Your thumb, well, your wrist would be like the lizard brain, like the brainstem. The thumb would be the amygdala, that little piece in the middle that sends out the flood of hormones and everything that causes you to go into fight, flight, or freeze. It's like a fire alarm, like danger, danger, right? That's your amygdala. And when that's happening, he says it's like flipping your lid. So when you think of the word flipped your lid, words flipped your lid, usually you think of somebody that's out of control, but it also could be like shut down. And when you're safe, feeling safe and regulated, your prefrontal cortex, which is if you were to fold your fingers down over your thumb, then you can access the thinking part of your brain, or the wise leader. So polyvagal theory, in a gist, is conflict and trauma, if not processed, will be stored in the body and create neural pathways. What fires together wires together. So we want to make sure that we're addressing this, that we're learning to regulate our nervous systems, because I like to think of, like, I'm an avid hiker, and I like to think of it like there's a piece of woods that I really want to explore. And the first time I go through the woods, it's hard, and there's not really a trail, but I keep going down that path, and the path becomes easier to walk. And then the path becomes like an actual trail. And then it's just like easy to go down, right? So the more conflict and trauma someone experiences, this can like become a negative pathway towards pain and suffering, right? And if you're not processing the conflict and trauma, if you're not working through it, your body will end up holding all of that, and your cells, and in tension, and in pain and headaches. So the good news is we can create good neural pathways to walk our way back out of that. But it's just to be aware that it's happening is important. So the nervous system has two parts, parasympathetic and sympathetic. The parasympathetic nervous system calms us down. It includes the vagus nerve, and it allows for healing. The exercises we did at the beginning of this help calm the the vagus nerve. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So the sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, or freeze with real or perceived danger. Like the danger doesn't have to make sense to you, but it feels 100% real to whoever you might be working with. That's in fight, flight, or freeze. So the vagus nerve can help people move from fight or flight to rest and repair. Think of it having like two modes. This is very, very simplistic explanation. You can feel safe or you can feel unsafe. And if you're feeling safe, you're in rest and repair mode. If you're feeling unsafe, you're in fight or flight mode. And this may not resonate with a lot of people because you're like, oh, well, I'm physically safe right now. Like I'm not under physical threat, but is your nervous system feeling safe? Did you get in a fight with the family member? Are you under a lot of stress at work? Are you sleeping good? Those are ways to see if you're actually feeling safe or not, safe and regulated. So ways that you can move into rest and repair to regulate your nervous system is through self-care experiments and community and relationships. So if the conflict and trauma and stress and all that isn't processed, and in the adverse childhood experience, research really dives into this. It's not comprehensive, but it lays the groundwork for this. You can have physical symptoms, headaches, stomach aches, GI issues, pain, tension, fatigue, sleep issues, racing heart, you name it. Random pain in your body that has no biological reason for it down the road, as ACEs shows, like it can turn into diseases like cancer and diabetes and obesity. So it is all connected. Like your brain and your body are connected. If you hear something and it doesn't sit well with you and you don't process it, it's going to move into your body and become a symptom. So here's the fight, flight, or freeze. Think about, well, you can think about yourself if you've experienced conflict and stress, which we all have, or the people that you work with. So fight, I think most people are familiar with. It tends to get a lot of attention because it's the most physical one. People that act out, people that are aggressive, defiant, hyperactive, people that argue and yell, that have a lot of adrenaline. You may think of physical altercations or aggressive driving or people that get in your personal space. People like, yeah, arguing is mentioned. That's a big one. The flight response, when you're working with people, you might see people that withdraw or miss meetings and appointments. They might walk out of meetings and appointments or court or class. They could sleep, just avoid interacting with people or avoid certain situations. They could hide, they could be totally disengaged. The freeze response is like the shutdown, like playing possum, where people are numb, they're not responsive, they have no answers, they have blank looks, they're unable to take action on anything. This is kind of like when people are in a dissociative state and they completely shut down to try to preserve their life. So think about these characteristics and the difficult people that you may work with in your position and know that if people are being difficult, if you're seeing behavioral issues, it's more than likely fight, flight, or freeze. This is a good way to reframe your difficult clients or students. See them through different eyes. So let's check in. How do you see this show up in your practice? And what would you like to know more about? Okay. So coaching around self-care to regulate the nervous system. This is really important. This is like the ultimate thing that I am basing my calm conflict program on. Without feeling safe, clients will not be able to process or attend to the conflict without experiencing fear, trauma, stress, and mental and physical health issues. If people are showing up to family court, they don't feel safe, they're not going to be able to participate and understand what's going on and resolve the conflict. If people show up to class, they are not feeling safe and regulated, they're not going to be able to learn. So this is very foundational. Like to access the prefrontal cortex, you have to be feeling safe and regulated. Coaching, and when I'm saying coaching, remember, is the ICF definition of coaching, helping people reach their full potential. It can be an affordable and accessible alternative and easily integrated into your practice. You do not have to be an ICF trained coach to do this, to use powerful questions, to help people regulate their nervous system. I am just trying to empower you and equip you with tools that you can use in your own practice, whatever that looks like. As I was looking through coaching literature for my light review, there is a lot of research, it is ongoing, and it's predicted that conflict coaching can help reduce overall conflict costs and time in court compared to standard practices alone. In terms of this in the educational setting, there's a lot of research on peace education and restorative practices. How I even did research on this. Conflict resolution quarterly. I will probably be also, I will link to it in this article. But students really want to learn how to resolve conflict because it not only helps them in school, it helps them in their community and families, and can boost like grades and reduce school violence. So anything that we can do as a society to prevent and reduce conflict is something we should aim for and embrace. Okay, back to the self-care experiments and community and relationships. I like to talk about self-care in terms of experiments because not everything works for everybody. You have to experiment and play around with different things to see what works for you at any given time. And self-care is really any physical and mental activity that facilitates positive physical sensations. So instead of feeling on edge or in pain or all of that stuff, you know, like when you're holding the stress and conflict and trauma in your body, self-care experiments and practices have positive physical sensations. So it can bring you out of the negative, painful sensations. And then community and relationships is a chance to connect and co-regulate with the overall goal of feeling safe. So if you are a practitioner, or if you're a professional, or if you're a teacher, if you yourself do not have a regulated nervous system, you're not going to be able to help other people calm down. Like, first you have to take care of yourself, then you can co-regulate with others and help them to feel calm and safe. So some of the self-care practices, and this is not an exhaustive list, it's just a starter pack, I guess you could say, and I will be covering some of these in my Calm Conflict program. Breath work, free, you can do it anywhere, nobody even has to know you're doing it. Journaling and expressive writing, really great for processing conflict and trauma. Meditation and mindfulness, learning to be okay with your thoughts, be present in each moment. Visioning is imagining what you want your life to be. It's very empowering. Lots of therapeutic resources to lean on, tapping, any kind of movement. And then I have a list like walking, yoga, Tai Chi and Qigong, dance, any kind of exercise, really. Getting out into nature, even looking at a picture of nature or watching a video or a nature documentary can be just as beneficial as going for a hike. Creating art, going to a museum, drumming is also really beneficial, that cross-body movement. So these are some self-care activities that you can start on your own and play around with, or encourage other people to do. Here are some powerful questions for self-care. If you would like to pause the video, take a screenshot, use these as journaling prompts. You could use them in your practice with your clients. What does self-care mean to you? How do you currently practice self-care? What's challenging about practicing self-care? What can you learn about how to care for yourself from how you care for others? What's your favorite form of self-care? What areas of self-care would you like to improve? What amount of self-care do you need in your life? What ideas do you have about how to practice self-care this week? What would you most like to learn about self-care? So let's check in again. This is a coaching tool called Stop, Start, More, Less. Feel free to adapt it. But after going over the information on neuroscience and how conflict and trauma can really hijack your brain or hijack your clients' brains, think about your current practices. What do you want to stop doing? What would you like to start doing? What do you want to do more of? And what do you want to do less of? Again, please use these questions with your clients or students. They're a really great reflective tool. If you have any questions about what I've covered in this session on coaching and neuroscience, or if you're interested in the Calm Conflict program, check the links down below. Or if you're in the article, you can read the article and click on the link to connect. I would love to assist you in any way that I can. And if you want to connect with me and talk more about trauma, conflict, self-care, any of those things, You can follow me on social at Trauma Informed Solutions or at Darby Calm. This will be on the YouTube at Darby Calm. I have two websites, traumainformedsolutions.com and Darby Calm, and you can do the QR code if you want to schedule a Zoom session with me to chat. All right, I hope you found this helpful, and watch for more content around trauma and conflict and self-care. I really want to make this work as accessible to as many people as possible. All right, take care.